So I will admit, I haven't put out an episode of Nerd Out Sanctuary in a while, mainly because of this reason, which is a new hobby that I kind of picked up. It's not really new. Like, I didn't pick it up in the past month or anything. I picked it up last year, last summer, the beginning of last summer. And I'm talking about Warhammer 40,000, Warhammer 40K, the tabletop game. So if you're unfamiliar with what Warhammer 40K is, it's like a fantasy world, but it takes place in the year 40,000. Jesus, sorry, I'm burping. Gross, Mike. God, just talk about Warhammer. Anyway, getting back to it before I was rudely interrupted by my goddamn burp. It's like a fantasy world, but it takes place in the year 40,000 or the 40th millennia or the 41st millennium. So it's really sci-fi, but it has a bunch of fantasy elements to it. It's sci-fi but fantasy at the same time. It's almost kind of like Star Wars, how it's like a sci-fi fantasy. And what a lot of people do is it's a tabletop game where, you buy models from whatever hobby shop or Games Workshop, which is the main company that owns the rights to Warhammer 40,000, I believe. But you buy their models, you put them together, and you paint them. And then you put them on a table and you play the game. And that's kind of been my new hobby, and I absolutely fucking love it. It's so amazing, and I just kind of want to gush about it a little bit and kind of maybe you would want to, if it would be something that you would want to get into. And I'll probably show some pictures of my own models that I have that I just painted. But I always wanted to get into Warhammer in college when I was kind of ran into it. I saw a couple of online videos about just games that people would record of Warhammer, and I just thought it looked so cool. I just loved the way it looked. The models just looked so cool, and the terrain that people would use, and they would put on these big tables and they would play. I had no idea what the fuck they were doing, but I would just love watching them just to see everyone's models and how the different armies and what they looked like and how different they were, and just to see what would happen. I would just like watching it. But I always kind of wanted to get into it at that point, but you'd go online and then you would see oh my God, a fucking unpainted, unassembled model is $50. If you want to buy a model that's fully assembled, fully painted, you're talking over $100, per unit or per model. Honestly, probably more than that. If you want to any quality painted, pro painted, you're talking $300 to $500 per model. It's kind of ridiculous. So, I mean, if you would think about it, once you assemble the model, it's worth more, and once you paint it, it's worth even more than that. So, I just painted a model today. I painted a chaplain. I'm just kind of thinking about it right now. That film and that model in the box, probably $30. Assembled, probably still $30 to $40, but now it's painted. It's worth up till probably $100 now, which is kind of cool. It's cool to think about, and that's kind of the one of the reasons why I love the hobby is that you put something together, you prime it, you paint it, you wash it, you put decals on it and everything, and then it's just there forever. You have that, and it's a tangible material that you made, and it's yours, and that's just, it's part of the just amazing part of the hobby, and that's just kind of models and wargaming in general. But what's so cool about Warhammer that I never realized is that it has this major extensive lore behind it, and how every single faction and army has this wide ranging fucking story and world building, and it's insane. The amount of lore that's in the universe is insane, and just the amount of armies that there are ridiculous. I would highly recommend watching a video on YouTube by a YouTuber named Bricky. He goes over like loosely every single army that you can play in the tabletop game and like what they're about, the lore behind them, what they look like, and certain things like that. And there, I think it's split up into two. Like he goes over all of the human or the Imperium armies, and then he goes over all the Xenos and like Chaos armies and the factions and stuff like that. And it's like he's really entertaining, he's funny, and he's also very informative, and he also kind of provides some insight on like this army probably wouldn't be good for newcomers because it's expensive and it's kind of complicated, and you would have to have a lot of models, requires a lot of models and a lot of painting. And like certain armies, he'll say like this one's probably pretty good for newcomers because it's, you know, simple to paint. You don't need that many models, so it's a little bit less expensive to collect. And it's also maybe goes into the tactics and behind each army and like what they're good at and what they're not good at. And I really like that, and that's his videos were very crucial on me, like actually picking an army, because that's the main thing you need. Like when you're starting out, you're not going to be fucking collecting multiple armies. It's just not going to happen, because that's the big drawback to this hobby, is that it's pretty fucking expensive to get into. I will admit, like it's not only the models that you have to pay for, which are expensive. It's the paintbrushes, it's the fucking hobby knife, the like hobby clippers to clip the models off the sprues. It's the, you know, certain files, it's the primers, it's the paint. Paint can be really expensive. Other accessories, kind of like a wet palette. I would say a wet palette is almost a must-have, because it helps you water down your paints and just helps the paint experience. But you can make your own. I made my own first when I started out, until I actually got a legitimate wet palette. But so yeah, you need all the paint. You need the rule book, which is $60 in itself. You need the codex for your army, which I think are around $40 to $50. So that's pretty expensive. I mean, certain units in your army, depending on, you know, the quality, can be really expensive. Like I just bought a tank and it was like $70. So yeah, it's very expensive. Paintbrushes can be expensive too. Like, you know, paint soap is very necessary. You know, washes to wash your model, like not like, you know, shades basically. If you want to put decals on your model, you need like, you know, decal softener and, you know, some what is it? Why am I blanking? But like a finish, like a matte finish to put on your model. Like there's a lot of stuff that you need for the hobby. Plus you need an area. I think like a cutting board, like a cutting mat, a hobby cutting mat is really good, so you don't cut up your table that you're working on. There's a lot that goes into it. Plus, you know, to play on the table, I mean, you can use whatever you want. Like you can use books, cups, boxes for terrain and stuff if you would wish, but like no one wants to do that forever. Like I just bought a battle mat the other day, and it's off of Amazon. That thing was like $70. But I mean, it's also a battle mat. It's like 4x6. It's kind of like your mouse. It's like a pad. It's like I got it as like, it's like a frozen tundra, because that's kind of the theme of my army. That's like their home world. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff. Plus you need, you know, terrain, but like you can make your own terrain. There's another good channel on YouTube. He does like these videos called Trash to Terrain, where he makes terrain out of like, you know, random shit like trash, like bottles, cardboard, you know, whatever else, mason jars, stuff like that. Give you cool ideas for crafting. And that's the big thing that is the main thing that I was drawn to with Warhammer 40K, is just the amount of customization and creativity that you can put in to the hobby. Like, I love Space Marines. I mean, there's a bunch of armies. I mean, just the Imperium in general. There's Space Marines, let alone like their own Space Marine chapters and successor chapters, but there's also the Imperial Guard, Adeptus Custodes, Grey Knights, AdMech. I think, did I say Imperial Guard? I think I said Imperial Guard. Adeptus Sororitas, which are basically nuns with guns. They're a really cool army. What else is there? There's the Assassinarum, which are like other, like a sort of like sub faction, or just kind of like its own little house. They're just like assassins for hire. That's just the Imperium side. But then you go to Chaos with the 4 Chaos Gods and other Chaos Space Marine chapters that follow one of the 4 Chaos Guards. You have 1,000 Suns, you have Death Guard, you have Black Legion, Night Lords, stuff like that. And then you have your own like Chaos Demons. And then you have Xenos factions. My brother plays Necrons, which fucking suck. Fuck Necrons. But they're good. They don't suck. Let's just say that. But Necrons. There's Tau, which is, they're the communists of the 40K universe. There's Tyranids, which are like the Zerg from StarCraft. There's Gene Stealer cults. There's Eldar, which are actual elves. There's Drukhari, which are dark elves, but they like to like rape and torture people. There's Greenskins, which are your orcs. There's a bunch of armies. There's insane. And each army has their own like sub-factions. Like with mine, Space Marines, there's like 9 Space Marine chapters. They're like founding chapters. And each one of those chapters have successor chapters, which like, it's like a fucking web. And what's really cool, but like I created my own Space Marine chapter. And they're a successor chapter of like the Dark Angels, because I originally wanted to have a Dark Angels army because I thought their lore was really cool and I really liked their cosmetic look. They almost have like this battle monk feel to them. And I really liked the look of their Deathwing Terminators with like bone colored armor. I thought they looked really cool. But, after a while, just like, it doesn't feel like it's my army. It's just Dark Angels, you know what I mean? So I decided to create my own successor chapter of the Dark Angels. And, like, I created my own lore. I, like, wrote out lore. I wrote out lore from my chapter master Donatus, because that's, it's like my last name, and it's also kind of like a Latin root word for like donate or to give. And like the big thing about my Space Marine chapter, aka who are known as the Dragonflies, which is kind of like a symbol for change and evolution, which like relates to the lore of my chapter. Chapter Master Donatus is known as the giver, or the giver of second chances, of redemption, and righteous retribution, as I wrote in his like lore synopsis sheet that I have like in my like little like on my computer that I wrote, because I'm a giant fucking nerd. But anyway, like behind it relates, I made them a successor chapter to the Dark Angels, is because they know about the Dark Angels' ancient secret, which is way back, I think, in the 31st millennium, when the Horus heresy happened, where the like main emperor's favorite son, or Primarch, Horus, turned to chaos. He turned a bunch of other Primarchs, or the Emperor's sons, to chaos, and like half of the Dark Angels Legion turned to chaos and like destroyed the Dark Angel homeworld. And then they got sucked into this warp, and like it's very complicated and convoluted. I suggest you read up on it if you want to find out more. But the main like goal behind the Dark Angels now in the 41st millennium is that they search out and find these previous members of the Dark Angels that turned to chaos. They are referred to as the Fallen, or Fallen Angels. They find them, they capture them, they torture them, and force them to like confess that they regret turning to chaos, and then once they do that, they just kill them. And my successor chapter, knows of that secret, because what we try to do as the dragonflies is we hunt and we capture those fallen angels, but then we bring them back and we convert them back to the good side, the Space Marine side, and they become Space Marines again. They become Adeptus Astartes again. And, that's the lore. And I'm going to have like my own separate like unit of like previously fallen, or they're going to be known as the reverted. Dark Angels have their interrogator chaplains that interrogate and torture the fallen angels, or I just painted my reverter chaplain today, and I'll put him on the screen right now. I think it looks pretty cool. I was really proud of him. He was actually my first ever like HQ unit, like single model unit that I painted, and I think he turned out really great. I'm actually pretty proud of myself. And that kind of brings me to one of the things that I was majorly concerned about coming into the hobby is I thought I was never going to be good enough to like paint a model that small. And I was like, there's no way I can do that. Like my hands are fucking shaky as fuck. It's horrible. And certain times, yeah, like it can be frustrating sometimes. But if you for a minute think you can't paint a model, you're wrong. Because that's what I thought. And I mean, look at that guy. I mean, like he looks pretty fucking good if I don't say so myself, flexing a little bit. But I mean, like, I don't do I'm not a professional or anything. I don't like edge highlight like a lot of people do. It's not professionally made at all, and it doesn't have to be. All it has to be is look good from like 6 feet up. You know what I mean? Like 6 feet away. Like they're meant to be put on the table. They're not meant to be like fucking analyzed microscopically or anything. Even though I do take my time and really try to like perfect the model and make them look really cool. But I mean, like if you don't think you can, like I'll even put a picture of my first model up right here. If you're just listening to this, I suggest watching this video on YouTube because I'll put it on. But yeah, I mean, like that was my first model, and it's like I said, it's not that hard. And like I watched some tutorials online if you really think about getting into it, and you just kind of have to get over the hump. Just go to the hobby store, your resident hobby store, pick up some fucking tactical Marines, and just paint them like they are on the box. Prime them, whatever color you want. Get some like black primer or some gray primer or whatever, and just paint them blue. And like, once you have them painted blue, start painting some other stuff on there. Just paint them and see like how easy it can be. It's really not that hard, and you don't really need a real high quality brush to do it either. I mean, I have a really high quality brush now, but I mean, it's not like an incredibly high quality, but it's pretty high quality. My brother gave it to me. Shout out to my fucking brother, who's a fucking legend, giving me an awesome paintbrush. That's what I painted my chaplain with. Dude, man, like it makes a fucking difference for sure. Just having that fine tip is just so nice. But like I said, don't be intimidated by it. It's an awesome hobby, and it's really fun to play too. Even when you lose, I mean, it's fucking frustrating when I play my brother because he always fucking beats me because he's Necrons and he always comes back and he's like the luckiest fucking player ever. And I don't know why. I feel like my dice like are loaded against me. But like that's kind of part of the fun. I kind of made my army kind of like a high risk, high reward type army. Like I value charging and melee combat very highly. So yeah, that's kind of my army, and I'm really proud of my creations. I'm really proud of the lore that I made. And you can do the same fucking thing. And like if you don't like Dark Angels, choose another Space Marine chapter. There's 8 more with a bunch of other successor chapters. You don't have to create your own if you're not like that creative or anything. Just pick an army that's really awesome. Like I wouldn't really suggest certain armies that I wouldn't suggest to get would probably be, I mean Imperial Guard's probably not that bad, but it's a lot of models, so it's probably a little bit expensive. Plus they use a lot of tanks, which are expensive for sure. AdMech, not a great army to start out with. Probably not a very beginner-friendly army to start painting. Adeptus Custodes is a good one because it's just gold and red. Like, it's pretty easy colors to paint. You don't need a lot of models. Grey Knights is a good one too. Even though I don't think they have the codexes out for 9th edition yet. And like, this is a great time to get into the hobby because it's a new edition. I mean, this edition's going to be around for how many years? I don't know how many years it was between 9th and 8th edition, but 9th edition just got released a year or two ago, I believe. So yeah, I mean, they're just releasing codexes for different armies now, and they're releasing new models with those codexes too. So there's a lot of really cool armies to get. I mean, like I said, if you want to be, a human army, Adeptus Custodes, Grey Knights, Space Marines are really easy to paint. Can be a little bit annoying, like certain models. What else is there? Adeptus Sororitas, probably not. Sisters of Battle, very expensive models. I think they might be going down a little bit because they just got a codex. I don't know. But what else is there? I mean, so those are kind of the human ones that I think are pretty good to start. Well, I think would be pretty good to start out with. Necrons is a good army to start out with if you're not a huge human fan. If you want like a Xenos faction, I heard Tau isn't too bad to paint, but Tau you kind of need a little bit more models as well. What else is there? I don't know about orcs, greenskins. I think greenskins wouldn't be bad. Tyranids I really wouldn't do because you need a lot of models for those. And I think Tyranid models aren't that aren't that cheap either. So it's probably not a great army to start out with. But yeah, I mean, watch Bricky's videos on YouTube, and they kind of give you a little bit more of an insight on the armies themselves. So yeah, that's Warhammer 40,000. It's a fucking sweet ass hobby, and I highly recommend anyone get into it because I think almost anyone could get into it, and it's a really great hobby. It really kind of gets your creative juices going. I mean, just because models or look a certain way on the box doesn't mean you have to paint them that way. AKA my personalized chapter, like. I paint them however the fuck I want because it's my goddamn chapter. And so I think they look fucking cool, so. And I deliberately, each color is deliberate on every model. Like, every color kind of means something, which I really like. That's kind of why I'm so attached to my army. Hello there. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you're unfamiliar with this channel, this is Nerd Out Sanctuary. I'm your host, Michael. What do I talk about, you say? Well, I talk about anything nerdy. So that's movies, video games, TV shows, comic books every once in a while. Books, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Anything that I feel like talking about. I'm a huge nerd. I hope you're a huge nerd, and I hope we can enjoy our nerdiness together here. This is a full audio podcast available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, the major podcast platforms. So consider going over to those and checking out the full version of the episode. And other past episodes, please leave me a review and subscribe on those platforms. If you don't want to do that, clipped, shorter versions of those full episodes will be posted here on YouTube. So consider subscribing and liking the videos for more to support me and future content that I will be producing in the future on nerdy stuff. So yeah, thank you, and see you on the next one.